So what we're going to be talking about is just why to use 4.9. You can see the bullets that we've got here. How to get a license, a little bit about how expensive they are, how far they go, and let's just jump in. So the basic premise is why would you go through a licensing process in order to get a 4.9 gigahertz interference-free slice of spectrum? And that's really what it comes down to, is that unlicensed spectrum is great for the masses, and it works very nicely for video surveillance. But wouldn't it be great if you had a reserved slice of spectrum for those public safety applications? And the real answer is yes. From a long-term standpoint, for a 10-year life cycle expectation, 4.9 offers a great deal of advantage just for that peace of mind that the spectrum is going to stay quiet, and the installation is particularly secure because you don't have other consumer electronics that have access, or that their equipment even would have the ability to serendipitously, I suppose, connect to that frequency or the equipment, even if it had wanted to. So there's 50 megahertz of available spectrum, and that would allow for roughly 400 megabit per second of max possible throughput given today's technology. So that's using some of the newer AC OFDM type front ends that they have now. I suppose in the future that's bound to go up a bit, but that much total data capacity is what you'd see available in that 50 megahertz of spectrum if you're an optimal system within a particular geometry. So you'd have channel reuse after maybe a quarter mile or less, such that you'd really have the ability to use that 400 megahertz over and over again within a municipal type of jurisdiction. So who can actually use the 4.9 band and even go through this process? Well, any public safety application, the FCC defines that as it's a protection of life, property, and interest. There's a formal description, but that's the quick way of saying it. It's protection of life and safety on the public basis. So obviously, police departments, electric grid operators, public, it can be wastewater, it can be source water, gas delivery, emergency services, public hospitals, public universities. Anybody that's out there can go and get a license directly. Even private hospitals and private universities. It can be really anyone that can make a defensible claim that they are providing a public safety value with their use of the spectrum. So how to go about getting such a license? Okay. Well, the license are issued by the FCC directly only to government entities. Now that doesn't mean private entities can't. Let me get to that second bullet in a moment. But the licenses are issued by the FCC directly to those government agencies, and those licenses are generated and issued within about 48 hours since the time that the application, free of charge application, is submitted. And the government entities that you can find on the licensing website of the FCC include police departments. On rare occasion, you see an electric utility, a public electric utility directly request one, a public water, gas, emergency services, the municipal hospitals, state universities. I've seen on the approved licensing list an assortment of different public.gov type of or .edu, I suppose, type of agencies. The vast majority, though, are police. It could either be a local city, it can be a county, it can be a state police, all of which can submit for a license within their jurisdiction. And the interesting thing is that they can actually use that license anywhere within their jurisdiction for mobile, temporary fixed, or for quick deployment type of hardware without anything further once they get their license. There's no additional registrations required with the FCC. Once they get a license within their municipality, and I think a state police could basically claim the entire state, which is a great deal of flexibility, and it's quite easy for them to get a license because they'll already have an administrator who's already familiar with the FCC licensing process because they're doing the walkie-talkie type of licenses all the time, and those are FCC. It follows the same FCC process. So there should be some place in the municipality all the way through state that has familiarity on how to request such a license. A little more on that in a moment, though. So how would a private entity that is providing public safety service with their video surveillance type system, or with other data services helping to protect the environment, I suppose, it'd have to be really a function of direct public safety interest. Generally, it would be a monitoring of a dam or poisoning or different type of phenomena that would be harmful to life and safety. The electric grid is a great example. There's a lot of private electric grid operators. There's private gas emergency operators for their 911 type services for ambulatory or for quick deployment hardware that might be for state agency based. FEMA or national agency or federal agencies have their own spectrum, so they actually don't use the 4.9 typically. I'm sure there's exceptions that they issue themselves, but it really is reserved for the non-federal state level and below type of organizations. So emergency services, hospitals, private hospitals, private universities have to enter into what's called a sharing agreement with a sponsoring government entity. Now, a sharing agreement sounds really fancy, but this is a template that we have right on our website, and although it's an eye chart here, you can download this Word, and what you would do is you would literally, as a private entity, let's say it's a university or for that matter, a car dealership that has video surveillance that also has an ancillary value to the police department for protecting life safety in a particular area. It can be any number of different use cases, but the reality is you have to, the easiest way to do this if you're a private entity is to go down to your police department and explain to them what it is you want to do with the 4.9 spectrum and how it is that you're providing additional support for them by enabling a faster police response mechanism by basically protecting life safety. It might just be a locally recorded system. They don't have to have direct access to it. Pretty much, they are your FCC in this regard. It's strictly a matter of getting your police department to say, sure, you can share the spectrum. They may say we don't have an active license, which is more likely the case than not, but with a little bit of help and following the real simple steps to get that license, it's straightforward. And at that point, it would be a simple letter as you have here. It's just the government agency listed above hereby authorizes said non-government entity above to operate in the band within their jurisdiction, and the written agreement applies to operation and can be terminated if the government agency decides that it no longer fits the description of a public safety use case. And that really is all it is. It's a simple letter. The FCC really doesn't go out and audit these things, but the operator really should have such a sharing agreement on file, and the jurisdiction really should have, they must have their license registered with the FCC. If you're a public entity, none of this is required. You just obviously submit for yourself. All right. So how are we going to go about doing this? So let's just assume that, for example, the local jurisdiction doesn't have a license, and to be honest with you, that's likely to be the case. They generally are doing walkie-talkies only, and may or may not even know or realize or have prior need for obtaining a 4.9 license. Now, it's free of charge, but if they've never done this before, it's pretty straightforward, and I'll go through. I've got a slide for some of these that just show the basic user interface that the FCC provides. But it's a URL. You click to register. This one's super easy. I think I can. Why don't I just flip to the next page? It's basically. I know it's a bit of an eye chart here, but it's basically you click on the URL that brings you to the page on the left. And then it's going to ask you to register for a FRN number, which is just a regulatory type of number that the FCC will assign to your business, and they'll want a person of record with some authority that they can assign the number to, and that person will be their point of contact. In this case, you can probably see I've got my name in there. And the next, there's one additional slide after this that basically just gives you the text of I hereby claim that I'm of authority to represent the company at large. So it's pretty straightforward, but that's why I call it step one. Locate the Spectrum licensing administrator or internal manager that has the authority to kind of sign for that municipality. It's not that they're signing their life away or they're signing anything beyond the fact that they can appropriately sign for the responsibility for their municipality's FRN number. Now again, if it's a police department, they're already going to have an FRN number. Again, it's free of charge to do so. Avalan has one because we're a manufacturer of radios. But once you have that, that's the easiest thing to do. Next thing you do is on that same exact URL page, on the same page, you log in with your new FRN number. You'll also have established a password when you create your FRN, and you're just going to select in, and it's very straightforward and self-evident. But you select the service. You say you want a public safety band. I've got the 20 screen captures, the entire thing that I can share as part of an FAQ. It'll walk you through each step. But then the online application, it's a Java application, will pop open. Now, I'll be honest with you, the FCC is a little behind the times because when that Java application opens, first of all, it's a pop-up, so you have to allow pop-ups. And the other thing is that the Java engine that they use is a little out of date, so your browser may throw some warnings that it doesn't trust that Java application or queries you to say that you're willing to take the risk to run it. Hey, I can't fix the FCC being behind the times, but make sure you realize you may get some sort of trusted thing you have to click on. It's, I don't know, it's government. They're not staying up to date on their Java. But click a trusted, pop-up's okay, and then you just start entering the information into the application. Now, I have a couple of the steps there that I'll show you in just a moment. After you do that, it's free. The FCC will typically respond within 48 hours as long as it's filled out correctly, and if it isn't, they'll tell you what they didn't like. There's no cost for the license, and it'll last 10 years, in which case you can just renew again, and renewing is even simpler. You just go in and you say, I want to renew. Okay, so there's your step 4 details, or step 2 details. Here's your step 4. So this is just a picture of the Java applet, and it looks like a complete disaster. With lots and lots of questions, it kind of looks like you're filling out your taxes. And although that's all nice and good, the beautiful thing is that the pre-populated sections, and if you notice along the top, there's different tabs that you go through as you follow through. But here you go. Here is your cheat sheet to get through it. Okay. So on the application information tab, it's the type of license. So these are your check boxes, that you go through. So application information, you put in that you're a government entity, ownership, questions, qualification tabs, general certification tab. I mean, the things that you have to modify here are negligible from the default settings, okay? And again, I've got a screen capture of each and every page as you go through, but as you see, there's really very little information that really is required along the way. It just looks crazy with all the detailed questions, whether you're, oh my gosh, they use the same form from everything from doing those walkie-talkies all the way to radio operators that do radio stations and TV stations and cellular. AT&T has to use this thing. I mean, it's a one-size-fits-all form. And there's lots of questions that just don't make any sense or just aren't relevant. So if you just go with what we have here, you'll be off and running. And if there's additional follow-on questions afterwards of one thing or another, the only one that you might scratch your head on is, will it have a significant environmental impact? Okay, I've never seen anyone actually have to answer it yes, but it's one of those things that I guess if you've got some local thing you might want to be aware of. oh god, I can't imagine what your environmental impact is, but you know, it might be something you want to look at. And if you're in a quiet zone notification, there's a few of these around the country, around some military bases and a handful of other locations. What I find is the best approach is you basically just say, you don't say anything. If you leave it blank, what will happen is the FCC will actually look up the jurisdiction that you're requesting from, and they'll let you know, and they'll provide you feedback and say, hey, you're actually in a quiet zone, or this fraction of your jurisdiction is in a quiet zone. So the best case is just leave it blank and let the FCC respond back with information about your particular zone, rather than trying to do deep research on that topic. It's just much easier that way. Okay, so what are the license types that you might be using for this, for your use cases? Well, if you're just going to be doing a temporary fixed, and temporary means under a year, quick deployment, again, under a year, these don't require any extra steps. It's only when you get after a year and they are fixed permanent systems that okay, the FCC wants a little extra information about where you have them mounted at. And you know, after you've had it operating and everything's tested out and it's working beautifully, a year is basically up. What you want to do is you're going to want to go on to Google Earth and look up the GPS coordinates of all the different sites, and you know that you've got one of your fixed radios at. And Google Earth will tell you the GPS, it'll tell you the elevation. At that point, you probably, and you also would need to enter in the height the antenna is off the ground, and the height the antenna is above surrounding buildings in case it's way up on a tower. They want to know how high above elevation it is. If it's below tree level, then it's 0. And then they want to know the direction of the antenna. All right, you can still do that from Google Earth if you plot out, all right, my access point here, and I know that's southeast, southwest. We actually have a template form just to make it easy to go out with a clipboard if you want to do it and collect it up. But it's real straightforward information. The only thing that it asks additionally is some information about which type of antenna you have at each one of those locations. Again, it's very straightforward. We've got a template that will help you fill out that one page that just wants to know some specifics about the antenna that you're using at each site. Not hard to fill out. It's just, it'd make you scratch your head if you don't know the information as a manufacturer, and that's about it. That's about the only one that gets a little bit scratch your head on, and the manufacturer of the product probably would want to provide that information to you, and we do on a basis that after your year is up, hey, what are the antenna parameters that I should be entering on this page? I've got a screen capture that I can show you at the end here if there's additional questions if you're at that point in your installation. But again, it's not hard. It's just it's basically put the numbers in, and you don't even need to ask why or what they are for all it matters. But it's just one of those things that they want to know in there. All right, so let's get on with how expensive are these things? Well, historically, there's a lot of legacy product out there that has been around for years. It's a bit out of date, and it's a bit slower. They aren't going to go 200 megabit per second. A lot of them were based on 802.11a or n, and are going to be doing 56 or 100 megabit per second. The good thing is that the more modern product that's out there, and there aren't many of us out there, but we're running the newer AC-based OFDM front end, so it's a lot faster. It's newer technology. We're running them 2x2 MIMO, so it's interesting. You can find some less expensive guidance or products out there that are anything from a few $100s. There's a couple of manufacturers that make kind of a quirky product that I don't know that actually is functionally likely to be installed by a municipality or by, the folks that are using 4.9 aren't generally interested in a super cheap. They're usually interested in something that has a service life of 5 or 10 years. They're going through the process of using reserve spectrum, and they generally are have the budget appropriate to install a professional installation of professional hardware. And with that, we price our gear, and it is the state-of-the-art data rate and electronics, at $1,000. It's at the same price we charge for our same gear at 5.8. We aren't charging a particular premium. I suppose the tech support overhead might be a little bit more because if there's any post-sales licensing support that's required, we're more than happy to do that. We're prepared to do so with the information I described earlier. But truly professional grade stuff can start at about $1,000 and go up from there, and you generally get what you pay for in this regard as well. Particularly if you're looking for the experienced licensing support and the post-sales product support, you want to look for those things, even if it's not Avalan. Just make sure you're buying equipment consistent with the quality and expectations of a government or municipal or public safety user, for that matter. Okay, enough said. Let me just say something real quick about range versus throughput. Now, marketeering. Okay, I'm a little bit of a marketeer myself, even though I come out of the CTO engineering founder type role. But on the marketeering side, we always like to talk about maximum range. All right, maximum range. You can get these things to go 30 miles if you can find a line of sight space long enough, and you go with our directional panels and you point it there to one end to the other. The FCC gives you lots of power in this band, and ours run at that maximum legal output power that they allow. It's a 1 watt radio. And the maximum throughput, you can go 200 megabit per second, and you've got 2 channels. I mean, I wish to say there were 18 channels, but the reality is there's 2 20 megahertz wide channels you can stuff into that 50 megahertz of allowed spectrum. All right, 200 megabits per second, that's 400. But here's the reality. And our reputable pre-sales guys will actually tell you this. The radios aren't going to achieve both maxima at the same time. You're really not going to go 200 megabit per second at 30 miles, and you're not going to go, vice versa. So what you want to think in terms of, as your distances get lower and lower and lower, the radios have to slow down. They got to downshift and downshift and downshift so that they can actually achieve enough power still and enough receive sensitivity. And you'll find that your data rates are going to drop. You might be at a 10 megabit per second of throughput rather than 160 or so. So at that point, it really becomes a functionality of maybe there's a train impairment as well. And you start talking about things at 30 miles, you start talking about Fresnel zone impairments. But if you're going 30 miles, call for pre-sales support, and you probably talk to engineering before you sell a 30-mile system anyhow. But you just have to realize range is inversely proportional to data rate. So if you really want that full 200 megabit per second, you're really going to want to keep your ranges modest. So if it's a point to multi-point where it's omni to panel, a couple hundred feet for that max data rate. Now, granted, if you go further than that, it's gonna, you'll still go a couple of miles anyhow with an omni to panel if you have, and you absolutely must have, clear line of sight. You'll still get great data rates, but the absolute biggie number, you've got to stay pretty close in order to have enough energy such that the demodulation blah 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 can achieve that really big throughput number. Not to say obviously that it can't go further than that. It's just it can do 30 miles, but someplace between 30 and 500 foot, there's a range of data rates that should be expected. All right, I think probably enough said. You guys are probably all familiar with that kind of thing. I like the honesty that our sales guys go with, and I think a lot of companies should be more straightforward with, particularly on the pre-sales side, is that you don't get both of those at the same time. All right, well, I'm actually down to 3 minutes, so I actually talked a lot. But we're always eager to answer any sort of questions you have, and we really want to earn your trust for any type of product that you might be looking at, either ours or others, and see if we can't answer any questions, give some pros and cons, and hopefully earn your trust and earn your business. But we're here Central Time at 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., and we're delighted, like I said, to try and answer any questions you might have. At this point, all the microphones are now open, and if there's any questions, feel free to hit me. It looks like I may have a question here that says, does this have any relation to the FirstNet guidance from the Fed? Oh my goodness. I'd have to do research to find out more about the FirstNet guidance from the Fed. Unfortunately, more on the tech side as far as the licensing goes, so I don't have an answer to that. I can look it up, Corey, and try and get back to the group. Are there other questions I might be able to support folks with?
Hey, Mike, this is Ken over at Elcom.
Hey, Ken, what's going on?
Good. How you doing?
All right.
Hey, just a quick question. Do you pre-qualify your customers looking to buy 4.9 equipment? Just curious.
Well,
as far as if they have licenses or not.
Well, it's a great question, and it's difficult to sell licensed band hardware on a fully restricted channel basis. But is it possible somebody could buy and get a hold of one of our 4.9 radios without having the proper qualifications? Well, yep, they sure could, and there's plenty of other ways of getting it. So on a pre-qualification basis, well, we don't. It is a professional install only class of product because it also does have end connectors on it. And the expectation, the warnings in the manual are that before operating the equipment, thou shalt, adhere to FCC guidance with professional installation for RF compliance, because it is using standard, if you will, based connectors and spectrum utilization. So our guidance at this point from selling it is to do your best efforts and apply, if you apply your best efforts to ask the questions and to qualify to to the best that you can, your exposure for FCC fines is at least would be negligible, because you've applied your best efforts to maintain a customer availability. But if somebody's buying it and they don't have a mechanism, it would still be their legal violation to operate it in such a manner.
Yeah, Mike, let me add to that for Ken. All of our products are commercial industrial products, so it's not anticipated that they would be sold to someone or whatever that doesn't understand that, radios are ruled by FCC regulations.
And we are really sold through what we consider a professional channel. We don't sell at Walmart and the consumer channels, although Elcom, you probably have a customer base that does have some consumer end users, but the vast majority of even your clients are going to be classifiable as a commercial entity, everything from a WISP to a general user. So all of our distribution is really, we're not selling it through Amazon, at least not directly in any fashion I'm aware of, but we do sell through a qualified industrial commercial channel.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Yep. Any other questions?
Yeah, it looks like Corey sent another question through with regards to sending signals for security. That this is for sending signals for security cameras and smart meters, not necessarily on somebody's on-truck radio, which I think that is correct. I mean, this is really fixed installation.
Well, it's at least it doesn't have, no, it can be for quick deploy. It can be for different types of let's say a police department that has a mobility app and they really want to be able to run it on in a cruiser, if you will, or they want to be able to hook into it. Most laptops don't support 4.9. So it is, I suppose, a possibility if we were to talk about it, and it's interesting because the Wi-Fi based hardware that a consumer would have isn't going to be doing a 4.9. But IoT, well, yeah, yeah, I mean, most of the things that you're going to connect with 4.9 are going to be things. It's going to be a surveillance camera. It's going to be a pump, a meter, any sort of class of that nature. On-truck radio, no, it's not really a walkie-talkie or generally a voice radio system. Not to say you couldn't plug in some sort of voice over IP emergency phone, for example, for public safety, maybe around a campus might make sense. I mean, that could be justifiable that you are providing emergency services for communications, but you'd want to run VoIP type phone, I suppose. Could certainly be a viable argument with, by talking to the, like again, if it's a private university, it'd be a matter of just talking to the police department and say, hey, here's what we need for a sharing agreement. Can you help us get that 4.9 license so we can help provide life safety for voice on our campus? But in truck, yeah, I don't know what on-truck radios are. Okay, does that answer it, Corey? You can just hop on with audio if you want to. It's either whatever you like, or type them in. It's totally cool. Okay, no mic candy. All good. Anything else I can answer, or more than happy to, if you give our sales guys a call afterwards. We're always here and delighted to support in any way we can. And Matt, did I get that right? Is it sales or sales 5 on the page there?
Either one works.
Okay, good. I know we use, yeah. Okay. Well, super. I think we're going to just wrap it up and give us a holler back if any follow-on questions come up.